And okay, hopefully we're streaming live to. Do we want to check on LinkedIn, Facebook,
Well, in that
X,
order,
Twitter, and
LinkedIn and X last. I don't care. I know that Keith does, but I don't.
X is live.
See
Facebook?
that? I don't see Facebook.
Mm,
That should be the easiest one.
yeah,
LinkedIn.
should be.
You see LinkedIn?
Nope. Okay, now I am.
Let's see. Working. It says live. We're live on Facebook. Didn't send out a notification though, so.
No, and I'm looking at Gilmore Gang's Facebook page and it's not there, which
No,
is
I think
weird.
it isn't there. I'm also agreeing.
Oh, I found it. Yeah, it's there. It is
It's
live.
now. It is
Yeah.
there. No.
Yep.
All right. All right, so we're streaming. Oh, Steve, we did not set up record yet. Recorded.
You did,
And
yeah. No, you did. LinkedIn.
we almost did a whole show without recording. That would be no
It
fun.
would be even shorter than it's going to be.
Okay. All right, friends. I will get Steve ready here. Hold on. And Steve, mute is off, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, and
That's a little quick start. And hi, Steve Gillmor here. This is the Gillmor Gang. Welcome from, I don't know where you are, Keith, but where are you? Silence from Keith.
uh-oh.
Great timing.
Yeah.
Keith, you can't hear me, right?
I can.
Oh,
Oh, where are you?
I was just playing dumb.
Oh,
Oh man.
It was a pause for the lower third.
where are you?
I am back home in Palo Alto.
Okay, thank you. That's Keith Tier. Welcome.
Pleased to be back.
From right next to me, producer director
what?
Tina Chase Gilmore.
Hi there. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Gillmor Gang.
From the State of Confusion, I don't understand your comment in the chat, Brent, but about what's her name? Running for governor again?
Yeah, that's it.
That's
Yeah,
that's a weird last name. Again?
but I think it keeps the confusion going. So welcome, Brent Leary.
I'm digging Tina's glasses. The lenses, the frames are pretty nice.
Aww.
She's got a whole look going there. It's
Oh.
good.
Aw.
Okay, we got everybody except for Frank Radis. I think so. So
Yeah.
from the state of London, it's Frank Radis. Welcome.
Hello, Steve. Hello, gang. Stirs.
Hello.
It's a sad day for him.
Uh-oh.
Somebody's
I was
beating
ex-
back.
I was accepting Steve Gilmore's invitation for some kind of podcast thing on Substack, and it immediately starts playing. I hate that.
I was going to say it's a sad day for me. I'm going to take 2 minutes at the top of the show just to uh, wish my good friend and probably one of the most underrated guitar players that ever lived, Rick Derringer, that he rest in peace. He passed away yesterday,
Mm.
and I spoke to his ex-wife just a few minutes ago, Liz Derringer, and I sent a note of condolences to his current wife, who's also a friend, Jenda Derringer. And it reminds me of the time that Belzer and I did a TV show at Caroline's, and we had Rick Derringer put together a band for the show, and we all showed up at the same time with absolutely no rehearsal, 4 cameras, turned the cameras on, and had one of the funniest shows with some of the best live music you have ever heard. It was just a brilliant night, and it just all came rushing back when I heard I guess less than a couple of hours ago that Rick had passed. And so that I just want to remember him as a good friend and as a player and as a guy who helped to start something at CNN with me back in the 80s. And that's it. Miss you, Rick.
How did you meet him?
Well, Liz, of course, was writing for Rolling Stone, and I had her over at CNN when I was executive producer of Showbiz Today, and she said, "Why don't you meet my husband?" And of course, I looked at her and I went, "Who's your husband?" And she said, "Oh, his name is Rick Derringer." And I went, "You're kidding." So he and I just became really good friends almost immediately. And anytime I could bring him in to play with any of the bands that I was playing in, he would come and he would play and never asked for money. And just, we always had a great time jamming together. He taught me a lot. And he became the voice of the top 10 from Billboard on Showbiz Today. And so every week on Wednesday, when the Billboard Top 10 came out, we would have Rick Derringer. And when Rick wasn't there, by the way, it was Joe Walsh. So we had these two brilliant guitar players back to back doing the top 10 every week. And it was really cool. It really was. And just getting to know Rick and hanging out with him and playing guitar with him and jamming with him was something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Where was
However,
he? Where was he brought up? Where's he from?
it's funny that you say that. I know he spent it was somewhere in the Midwest. I think it was in Ohio. That's where the band that he played with, the McCoys, which did Hang On Sloopy, was from. And although the band didn't make the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they didn't have a whole lot of hits, the drum set and one of his guitars is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. And so at least they're remembered as bands that had an influence. I mean, that song influenced me as did Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, which was really bizarre this morning. um, Joe Bonamassa posted a video of Rick playing with Edgar Winter playing Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo on Midnight Special, which is a long time ago. But he didn't mention that Rick had passed, so I'm not sure that he knew Rick had passed yet. And that was just a coincidence. But I don't believe in coincidences. The music world knows now, and that was just an odd thing. So I decided to put Rick's that piece of video on the end of my next newsletter, which is on Friday. That's it. I got nothing else. I mean, I have other stuff, but as far as that story is concerned,
Not to
Any-
trivialize a solemn situation, but the fact that his ex-wife and his current wife both have his name implies
Yeah.
he's a guy that you want to stay with.
Yes, that's a good point. And she has since remarried but kept his name, which is very interesting.
Is she still writing?
No, she's riding horses now instead of writing. She lives with her husband in the Hamptons, and they own horses, which is pretty amazing. He's a great guy, and but no, she's not doing anything in the music world anymore.
Okay.
That's it.
I'm so sorry that
Yeah.
it sounds like a long
Yeah.
time friend, and it's a hard loss. I know.
Yeah.
We're stacking them up recently.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah, it's real hard.
It's tough. It sucks to get old.
Yeah,
Or older.
it's lonely.
Well, I do want to say something to Keith. That Google Notebook thing is spectacular. It's really something. As soon as you mentioned it, I went to it and I started inserting stuff into it. And the next thing I knew, it was spitting out really cool stuff. And I was like, wow, that's an amazing app. It's
Okay,
an
let's
A.
hear about it. I want to hear about it. What's this Google Note thing?
Keith, take it away if you don't mind.
So Google Notebook was an internal team at Google that was not the mainstream AI team. And they created this thing that you give it, initially it was academic papers, and it would do a couple of things. Firstly, it would summarize and explain the paper, but very, very well, especially complex topics. And then secondly, you could ask it to make a podcast, male and female co-hosts discussing the key points in the paper, like a podcast. And so I used it last week because I was overseas, as you all know. So I didn't record a show with Andrew Keene. So instead of recording a show, I gave Notebook LM my newsletter with the editorial and asked it to create a podcast discussing my editorial. And Frank probably listened to that.
I did.
Are
It
they
was,
still using the same male and female voice? Because that's the thing I
Yes.
got tired of. Everybody started doing it like last year. I'm like, oh my God, can we get some new voices? I mean, that
Yeah, it is interesting they haven't given it new voices. That's true.
yeah.
But the quality of the content, especially if you customize the prompt, you can pretty much direct them to talk about exactly what you want in the tone and style that you want. So it's pretty good. It is really good.
Well,
Yeah.
I've been enjoying the Andrew Keith Tier conundrum for months now. It's one of my favorite podcasts. This is the only one that I actually listen to, and I didn't listen to this automated one. So here's to that from me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely not a replacement, but it was a pretty good stand-in. It was either do nothing or do a stand-in. So I chose to do the stand-in. It's only
And
by the way, it's only 9 minutes, so it's much shorter than the normal
Well,
30.
that's 9 minutes that I will get back because I didn't lose it.
There you go.
the thing that struck me was early on in AI, I was waiting for someone to come up with an app that you could just dump stuff into. So dump Facebook pages into it and dump your text into it and dump videos into it, dump music into it, just dump a bunch of stuff into it and then prompt it to do something. And rather than always having it go out and search out stuff that was salient to the point that you were trying to make and then putting it in there, this is you loading it up with stuff that you want to be in it. And I think that to me, that was sort of the turning point for me. It was also something that I think, yeah, I talked to my friend of mine's giving a big speech about AI here at London Tech Week in a couple of weeks. And we were talking about it today as it's just an amazing app. It really is. I mean, actually, I didn't find it as an app. I had to search it out and find it living on the internet, and then I started to use it. Is there an app for it?
They've just released an Android and iOS app, I believe.
Not here.
Oh, that might be true. It might be only in the US App Store.
Yeah,
But it's a website. You can
yeah,
go there as a website, and all the functionalities in the website, so you don't
yeah.
need the app.
And I just bookmarked the website as an app look on my phone, so I can.
If you like it, you'll like Perplexity even more.
Well, I have that, and I haven't played with it, so I guess
So
it's time for me to start doing that.
Perplexity, you use the feature called Spaces, and you can create a space that's customized to a particular topic and give it specific documents that are just in that space, and then use it as a conversation about the documents you put in, and you can ask it for almost anything, and it saves it as a history, and you can share that like a web page to other people.
Looks like I won't be sleeping again tonight, so
New toys.
I love that stuff.
Steve's using Perplexity a lot. I see it on
Yeah,
Substack.
I find it. I think it's well positioned to either get crushed very soon or become an important player.
Are you using it, Steve? Are you for
Yeah, I use it
Substacks?
all the time, but I
Ah,
use it basically as a bookmark service. As a matter of fact, there's a guy who I've known for a long time. I don't know if any of you do. Well, you know him, I think, Keith, Marshall Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
Yeah, and he reacted to what I do is to use Perplexity as the store, the basic store of the link, and I don't really link uh, as a method of broadcasting that I like something. It's more that I haven't had time to read it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it's where is it, but I use the Perplexity link because Perplexity was the first, I think, probably not no longer. I think probably OpenAI does it. You can tell me, Keith, but it provides the source links as well.
Hmm.
And so if I want to read the source, I can go to that. So it's sort of a double-hedged uh, link service.
So there's a real reason for it. I mean,
Yeah, well,
that's
I've been experimenting with its summaries are interesting, although they're trying to, push me into a paid version, and occasionally they just arbitrarily upgrade me, which I find it's like, hey, we're giving you a paywall for a year free. I'm not
And
real happy about that either.
you're not happy about that, huh?
No, no, because a paywall doesn't have the social implications or the context that is why social media sort of emerged, at least in my opinion.
So
Is
the open
no
version.
context for the community or for the group or for the
That's
center.
why uh, that's why I prefer to not turn on the you pay for my newsletter, but I like the fact that some people have actually a number of people have just donated to my newsletter, but not paying for the newsletter. So I don't have a paywall up for that content. I like that, and it keeps my newsletter more social, and it keeps growing. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that nobody has to pay for it.
Well, I think you're onto something there. The last week's or whenever we did it show, I think went in an interesting place, particularly when Brent was drilling into what his observations were about Substack's costs and whether there was a flight to money that was underway. I just sort of disagree with him that I don't see any real evidence of that. But what I do find compelling about what Substack is not doing yet is that they are walling themselves off from the ecosystem in terms of its behavior. And I understand why they're not doing it, at least from having read some of their justifications for it. First of all, it's their business model to not do this. And I think that's legitimate because they've been very effective at pioneering a lot of stuff that wouldn't exist without it. And uh, but more importantly, uh, is what I think we talked about on the last show is what happens when they run out of steam because the economic model has a upward limit in terms of either compensation or intention on the part of the creators. So I think that what you're talking about when you do what you do, Frank, is you're basically tapping into this. It's like overlapping. It's like a Venn diagram of an audience and other audiences that sort of circumnavigate that initial rationale for something. And that's why I think blogs happened. I think that's why podcasts happened. They may have changed a lot recently, but um, I think what Substack is missing, and I think everybody's missing it right now, but is this idea that you're posting to this entity called the web, or as many of the geniuses out there are suggesting, is the deprecation of the web in favor of AI. I think that's a real issue, but not for the reasons that I think that there's an article that I linked to in Substack notes through Perplexity, which talks about this issue. So if you go to gilmorgang.substack.com/ that's probably it. You should be able to get to the profile and then just click on the top and you'll see that it says notes and there's a stream of them that you can access. And then, it's a lot of work to do, but eventually what I've done is I rarely read the actual source material anymore because the Perplexity summaries are sufficient when I'm hurrying to, try and prepare for the show, for example. I don't have time for it.
The article you're referring to is Google is burying the web alive. I just linked
Correct.
that.
Yeah. And I think they're talking about the idea of the uh, canonical web as being something that is being lost. And I would say that, you know, good riddance. It should be replaced by whatever it is that the web replaced.
So Microsoft this week announced a collaborative thing with some other companies. I can't remember what the list of companies was, but they've basically developed a way to turn a website into a chat agent. So basically, your website can now be chatted with, uh, and they're all connected. So any website through a URL can be chatted with, and so the content on the website becomes the content used by the chat agent to answer questions.
Is that an app or is that
No, it's a
something on the?
protocol. It's a protocol.
Hmm.
So every website owner can implement it with probably a single line of JavaScript or something, and then your website becomes um, modernized to be able to be part of a chat network, if you will.
Geez.
Hmm.
Okay.
Well,
That's
I
a one
wouldn't
level
bet
too.
I wouldn't bet that that's going to get the kind of I think it'll have an impact, but I don't think that it'll be widely adopted. I mean, probably there mostly because Google will come up with something to compete with it.
Yeah. Tim O'Reilly wrote something this week on these lines as well, talking about the open AI network or whatever it is, and he called for um, massively distributed AIs able to talk to each other, so that what you get is an internet-like network of agents as opposed to a proprietary set of agents that you own and control. It's like intranet versus internet of AI agents. And it was just an article imagining a future. So they haven't, but I think he's turned the O'Reilly website into one of these Microsoft nodes as part of that.
Well, that's interesting since he's been a investor, fairly large investor in Google all along.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of goes back to the when IBM and I forget who else were investing in protocols rather than in platforms. And uh, I can't even remember the protocols at this point. But
Yeah.
I think that what's going to happen rather rapidly, and I think I'd like to switch to a little bit of get some attitude from you guys about the political situation. So I don't want to dwell on this too long, but there is, I think, some indication on the part of how Trump has been doing in terms of controlling the conversation, which is similar to the idea of having some sort of technical standard controlling the conversation. I don't think I think Trump's more successful at that than the vendors are.
I think Trump's using AI to make a lot of his posts
Hmm.
because they seem a lot more thought out. I mean, either he's using AI or his people are using AI. It just seems to me that that they they seem to except for the really wacky ones that he posts late at night, and like the one that he posted for Memorial Day, couldn't have been done by an AI. Simply couldn't have been. It was so disgusting.
Don't you think that he has, he's sort of exhibited recently, he's liking the idea that he can basically dominate the television screen
Yeah.
uh, just by, basically inviting people into the room. Uh, but I've been really kind of impressed, I hate to say it, with his command of when he's not trying to sell you on the idea that he knows what he's talking about, which of course is abysmal. When he's just basically uh, excited about something, he betrays a depth of knowledge and experience that I find really surprising.
Oh yeah, like the West Point speech.
I didn't see that. Was
Oh
this
my, it
sarcasm?
was. Oh, that was very sarcastic. That was it was simply one of the most, to me anyway, one of the most embarrassing things I've ever heard coming out of a president's mouth. And I thought he was embarrassing, and I thought he showed a side of himself to the rest of the world when he was standing in front of all those cadets, many of actually all of whom enlisted during the Biden administration, when he said absolutely no one enlisted during the Biden administration. I mean, it was just filled with stuff like he went off on trophy wives. He went off on the weirdest tangents that simply made absolutely no sense for these cadets. Uh, and then in the end, embarrassment of all. Like every president in the past would stay and shake hands with every graduating cadet. He didn't. He left after shaking the first 20 or so hands.
Well, Vance,
And
that's job. That's his job.
yeah,
I was mesmerized by that, watching him shake everybody's hand. For
well, Obama did it too. Biden did it. Obama did it. I don't know about Bush
well,
but
let's
I
try an
know.
experiment. Can you address what I'm talking about on a positive level about his control of uh, the rhythm of these live events? Not the ones where he's trying to make the same stupid point over and over again, but his when he was in Congress the other day, the guy knows as much as Nancy Pelosi knows about the count.
Oh, come on.
You
About
know what? The answer to your question, Steve?
yeah.
No, I can't.
Okay.
Maybe it's I can't
Anybody
or I
else?
won't. I'm not sure. I just don't see it.
I'm sure you don't want to, but that's not what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
no, I don't see that at all. I
So
really don't.
you don't see any particular value in
Him.
examining uh, the strengths of an opponent rather than just their weaknesses.
No, I think you have to see both sides, and I keep
Good. So
looking for
let me
strengths.
tell you a little bit about.
I see no strengths other than his ability to control the media. That's the only, and his
Is that a strength?
I think it's his only strength.
But is
No,
it?
people around him who are not necessarily preordained to like him, like Bill Maher, who spent that dinner with him, speak
True.
very highly of his capabilities intellectually, way different to what you would expect, where we all think he's an idiot. So there must be something about him that the performance berries.
Fair enough.
There must be.
Yeah,
I think his motivation becomes so transparent so quickly that people are not willing to extend to him an understanding of what his talents are. And I
But
understand
yeah,
why. I mean, I find the guy, well, no comment. But it's not an easy thing to. I mean, what's he doing, for example, with the situation with the war and his negotiation style? What do you think is going on there? Brent, do you have any attitude about this other than that he sucks?
No, that pretty much sums it up.
Okay.
I mean,
Takers?
he's doing that Wizard of Oz thing. You know, he's basically, um, you know, on the one hand, you have Vance saying we want to welcome Russia back into to the Club of Nations. On the other hand, you've got Trump saying the guy's gone crazy and he's killing people for no reason, and I don't know what's happened to him. And there's kind of an authenticity in both that, when looked at through the eyes of ordinary people.
Well, you made the point, the first point, you made that on the last week's show, so we'll refer them to the transcript.
Yeah.
But why do you see what is the authenticity of Trump's comment?
Well, so the last few days, Putin's been bombarding Ukraine with several hundred drones a day in Kyiv, killing civilians. And Trump's pretty committed, as we all know, to want to get Putin to the table. But that doesn't stop him blurting out angrily that Putin's lost it. So he's not an ideologue that sticks to a line. He adjusts to the circumstances, and is prepared to disagree with his former self on any given day if circumstances justify it. And that is kind of, on the one hand, it's not very strategic. On the other hand, it is authentic because he's saying what he thinks based on what's just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised by his authenticity, if you will, on the Putin subject. It certainly is a departure for, you know, any of his past comments on Putin. He's getting a little rougher. I mean, saying, you know, that someone's, I don't remember the exact wording, but it was kind of like he's gone crazy. And you know, I don't know whether
That is the exact wording, by the way. Yeah.
uh, you know, I don't really understand the relationship right now. I don't know if we understood the relationship before. He always claimed that, you know, they were I don't think he's ever used the word close, but you know, he could talk to the guy. He's a smart guy. He's a powerful guy. He's
Yeah,
all
he
this
even
stuff.
today
And
or
now
yesterday,
he's changing that tune.
he said yesterday that they were close and that he's feeling like something has happened. But I would agree with both what you're saying, Tina, and what Keith's saying. It's a high wire act, and he doesn't have anywhere to really go. But that isn't the question that I'm asking, at least.
Steve, I think that one of the questions you're asking is like, is Trump doing anything, I don't want to say positive, or is he making any headway in something that, you know, we might expect some good results from, or something like that. And I would say that hearing him say these kinds of things makes me, I guess, think or believe that he's actually thinking and analyzing things where, you know, I didn't really feel that way before. And I do think I have seen this. I can't pinpoint another example, but I do think that I've heard him do this a few times recently where I've been a little surprised at the again, I don't want to call it truth or whatever that's coming out of his mouth, but something a little more. I think what it is for me is that he seems to be a little more capable of speaking in the moment and having something other than bullshit come out of his mouth. Like there has been some stuff come out that seems a little clearer. Frank's not agreeing with me, but
Well, you obviously didn't see him at West Point.
oh, I think that was that was horrible. And
2 hours of non
like,
sequiturs. It was just insanity. And I'm sorry, but to me, at a moment in history, in front of these people who are going to go out and spend their lives, the rest of their lives,
and
defending the country
yeah,
and doing something serious,
Yeah.
For that speech to be made to that group on that day in this time in history was abominable and shameful and absolutely every other word I could come up with. I would throw in there if I could think fast enough right now to throw more of those words in there. It was just unbelievable.
And I totally I agree with that. But I think there's been the same amount of that stuff, that kind of like just awful, what's the word? Not nasty, but just like insensitive, doesn't, can't.
It's more than that, Tina. It's
So
so much more than that. Look, I agree with you, Steve. If I think about it, those little short, quick bites, the quibbies, the Trump quibbies uh, seem to be on point. Easy for him to make a quick statement that he knows what he's talking about and move out. This was the one thing that belied that as something that is just done by rote, something that is it's like training to me. That's how it looks to me. That's why I think some of the things he says, which seem to be on point, work. But even they are thrown out the baby with the bathwater when you take a look at some of the longer. Oh, we just lost someone. Oh, he's back. Anyway, that's my opinion, and that's probably
My,
what
my
will.
analogy would be Emperor Palpatine. You know, why is he powerful?
I was going to say that.
Oh
I
my
don't
God,
know who that
Palpatine!
is.
How did you get that into this conversation?
Palpatine is powerful because of the dark side of the Force. And if you think of Trump, what is Trump harvesting? He's harvesting a negativism about America and trying to give um, uh, um, yeah, here you go. This is part of it. The scum who spent the last 4 years trying to destroy our country is
Yeah.
harvesting the dark side, the negativity,
Yep.
and trying to demonize it as being totally applicable to DEI loving Democrats. And basically, the majority want to be pro-American and not anti-white. That's basically the majority. So he's harvesting the dark side, like Palpatine harvests the dark side of the Force. And to be fair, the Democrats kind of deserve it because they've fed him plenty of ammunition to be able to do that with.
Well, and the Democrats have basically given up right now. Also, by the way, make sure you watch Andor.
I've watched the whole thing. I watched it on. I watched the whole thing end to end on my trip to Bilbao.
It's a good show, and it talks a lot about sort of the earlier days of
Yeah.
prior to the.
But in that sense, Trump is not just a figurehead individual. He's the figurehead of something, and that something is a generally not very confident, victimized populace that feels like life is not good.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think that's not going to change either. So I
Don't
think you're
forget
right.
racist.
So on the last show, Keith, you basically made the point that um, that I lost it just as I interrupted Tina, and she interrupted me. So I'm hoisted by my own petard.
And I for sure don't remember what I said on the last show, so I
Well,
would be zero help.
it was basically talking about. Well, I can't remember it. If you guys talk, I'll remember
We
it.
go to Silent Brent.
Yeah.
Brent
Let's hear
doesn't.
what Silent Brent is thinking today.
Well, I want to know that, but we're not going to know that.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't take certain conversations where people actually are trying to make this guy look like he knows exactly what he's talking about.
I'm not doing that.
No.
No, I know you're not doing that.
Nobody on this show is doing that. However, I've had
sure.
the experience on this show over
This
the
dude credit for
weeks
stuff
and
because
months
he's
and
some kind of
years
deep
of
thinker,
trying
or
to talk about the
he's
bad
playing
guy.
chess while we're all playing checkers or something. I'm not buying into any of that. The thing that he
Oh, I
does,
didn't say that.
the thing that he does and does well is he knows how to manipulate people. He knows how to promote his agenda. and his agenda is not something that it makes a lot of sense only to him. You know,
Check out what
Well,
Ian
it makes
Waring just
sense
said.
to the Democrats because they're shutting up now because he's successful at what he's doing.
I don't know what he's doing or what they're doing. I don't really care what they're doing because, as you all have said, what they've done over the last several years hasn't worked. But what I will say is, he knows how to manipulate people and he knows what pushes certain people's buttons. So if, they don't agree with the stuff he's doing with tariffs or trade wars or whatever, there's a certain percentage of people who absolutely agree with letting the white South Africans come in while they don't let anybody else come in. So they know that's there for that. And
Well,
so if that's all that matters to them, or if that's the most important thing, they'll look. They don't care about anything else. He said that Memorial Day message. My God, did you read that? He's basically calling out judges basically for not agreeing to him, calling them the scum of the earth and un-American and all this stuff. Because guess what? There's a certain percentage of people that love that kind of stuff. And so as long as he's able to throw certain, and some of it I think he agrees with, some of it he might not, but he don't care because he knows that that will rile up a certain group of people and that will keep them always in his corner. That's what I think he's best at,
And even
being
worse,
divisive.
even worse than that, Brent, the forces that support him, you look at this big beautiful bill and what it really represents. What that big beautiful bill represents is him caving in to the bureaucracy in DC to preserve the status quo. All the talk about Doge and modernizing or getting costs out of the system, total BS. They're going to add 4 trillion to the national debt through this big beautiful bill. So he admitted that he's powerless because he can't get what he wants through the House or the Senate. So actually, the truth is, the House and the Senate still run the USA. The big beautiful bill is what they stand for, and it's completely the opposite of what his narrative says he stands for. So he's a failed president already, captured by the political system and turned into just a big talker with no action.
So I would put a lot of the blame on the media. For example, the things that you just said about the big beautiful bill to me are absolutely true, and they're not being reported by the mainstream media. Think
That's-
about them. Think about them.
I mean,
Not to the point where
I've
it's sticking. Not
seen
to
them
the
talk
point where it's sticking
endlessly.
with it.
I
Not to the
don't
point.
agree with.
Anyway, let me make my point, and then you can disagree with me.
Well, how
I
about
I don't.
real time?
I don't think that whatever the mainstream media is doing is sticking. A. B. Think
I agree.
about the MS-13 photoshopped hand thing, which he continually went on about, which absolutely was not true. And the media made a point of it for about a day, and then it went away because he changed the subject the next day. Think about the photo that he pulled up of the white people that had been buried in South Africa. It turned out it was black people. And I'm telling you, the media reported it for about a day, and the next day he did something else that made them go squirrel. I'm telling you, man, that's what he does, and I'm sick and tired of that shit.
Well, the media really are sitting on top of the political party system. So if the media is doing that, you got to blame the opposition for allowing that to happen.
The opposition is also full of shit right now, honestly. Yeah, the Democrats don't know what end is up. They just don't. And I think, you know, we can any of you say which Democrat is likely to rise to the top? Which Democrat, other than maybe the kid Hogg, who seems to be smart and
Go away. Go away.
What
David
would be
Hogg is being
popular? What would
attacked.
be, sorry, Steve.
I don't know what happened. Oh, it's a phone call.
What would be popular would be if somebody took the essence of that Doge message, which is, I think, the best version of it is modernizing a government that is providing better services for less money, If somebody took that more positive version of the Doe's message and looked at the House and the Senate as dinosaurs trying to spend your tax dollars and had an agenda for a modern, efficient America. Now, no Democrat's going to do that because it sounds too pro-capitalist. But that's what's needed. It's a modernizing message with a getting quality of service for less money kind of message, using modern techniques and software. There isn't really a voice in politics that stands for the future.
Mhm.
Everybody's preserving the past or fighting their little corner on some micro issue, but there's no overarching positivity.
I buy that, Keith. I do. I think that certainly would have been a better way to present what it was that Doge was trying to do, instead of saying that we're going to dive in there, we're going to fire people, and we're going to save you money. Well, you know what? They didn't do any of that shit. If they had said what you said, even if they didn't do it, they'd certainly Musk might still be around if in fact he's gone. I don't believe for a minute that he's completely out of the picture. Um,
I
he
just
was
think
at
if you look at this as a card game, and a good card player will sit back and watch for the tells, and the Democrats are not watching for the tells. The Republicans are afraid of watching for the tells,
yeah, I think you're
and
right.
and your analysis, Keith, of this positivity message. It may play well theoretically, but I don't think it's realistic in the slightest.
Oh,
The reason
I
that
agree with that too.
JFK, the reason that JFK remains the most popular president in American history is because he was good on TV. And the way he was good on TV was to be like the Beatles, basically. It was the Beatles and JFK. It
George
was
Best.
what?
And George Best.
I don't know. That's a soccer player, right?
He was called the fifth Beatle. He is a soccer player,
Oh, that was Pete Best.
yeah. No.
So when I hear an analysis that suggests what the Democrats are going to do that's going to work, then I'll be interested.
Well, I think a few of them are coming out and saying we've got to get more centrist. We've got to get out of this woke shit stuff that we're kind of mired in. Uh this identity politics stuff that we seem to be so wrapped up in is not what people's lives are about. And I I think it was Rahm Emanuel. I was hearing about him today, kind of thinking about higher office and also just sounding this alarm that Democrats better get their shit together and stop some of the bullshit and start focusing on people's lives and what really matters to them. I don't know if Rahm Emanuel can do that. I think he's going to be making a play for governor. Um, but there are some other. We've also heard Elisa Slot can do that. She's a representative from Michigan, and she's a pretty interesting person. I think she's got a heavy military background. She can speak. She's fairly personable. She seems smart. Um, and she's also saying, enough of this stuff. We've got to have a much more meaningful message to people's lives, like to connect to their lives. So I think we're starting to hear little dribs and drabs of like, okay, that didn't work. That just killed us. Now we've got to, retool. But I also agree that, we're not, the Democrats are not filling up any space. I mean, aside from, AOC and Bernie, we don't see a lot of voices right now that are kind of fighting for the Democrats, or at least giving them a reason to stick around. So I think Keith had to leave for a few minutes.
So let me ask, uh, what do you think about anybody? What do you think about this Apple situation? Do you think Tim Cook is doing a good job or not?
This is, you could almost say the same thing about Harvard. He's literally picking out his own personal boogeymen because they didn't agree with, or didn't act like they agreed with him, or they actually went against him. What is Tim? I was going to say Tim Apple. What is what is Tim? What's his last name? Begin Clark or something like that. What is he supposed to do with somebody who is literally going after you because he doesn't think you're loyal enough to him? Because that's what's going on here. I mean, what can he do? He's not going to be able to all of a sudden start manufacturing phones in the U.S. I mean, that's not going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Apple was more, Harvard was more because I think a couple of things. One, his son couldn't get in, and two, he's still pissed off at Obama, who was, I don't know, he's just still pissed off, and that's personal. And as far as Apple's concerned, maybe there's something personal there. A lot of this stuff seems like there's some touch of personal in
It's
his
always personal.
vindictiveness, you
But I
know?
mean, the problem with Apple is not coming from Trump. It's coming from the situations that Apple is in relative to its product line and its innovation or lack of it. I mean,
But is
I,
that
I
really?
haven't bought I haven't bought the newest iPhone now in like 3 years. I
But
mean,
do you
that's
really think that's why he is going after Apple? No, it's Frank.
I'm
Frank,
not talking about I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking
well,
about
you asked us about the situation, so that's
Tim
part
Cook.
of it.
Fair enough. I'm
Tim
just
Cook, what can he possibly do with somebody who has a vendetta against
so
him? I
is
mean,
you think
I don't know.
that all this hot air coming from OpenAI is going to somehow because he's got the design guy from
Oh, from iPhone, yeah. The
yeah,
OpenAI got him for
do you
six
think
billion
that that's
bucks.
going to
Who
change?
Ive,
Yeah,
Johnny Ive.
Johnny Ive, yeah,
Exactly.
whatever it is.
So do let's get way out on a limb here and say, do you really think that in 2 years or 3 years that Apple is going to collapse?
No.
No, they're not going to collapse. They're just maybe not be as significant as they once were, but
Yeah, they will be. I
I
don't.
think they could
Right.
be. But the way they've done the AI so far, they still don't seem to get it.
Well, I don't think anybody's done AI particularly well. So
No, I would say there's some that have done it way better than they have.
who?
I
Microsoft
What?
through their 10% stake ownership of OpenAI. You got to factor that in.
I read every day about how difficult a problem Microsoft has with uh, trying to deal with the board and the dynamics of open source and how that's, I mean, they got a lot of problems there. They solved a big problem for themselves by coming back from having completely bungled the transition to mobile and
That's true.
yeah,
Mhm.
But
so
they've got two things going in their favor. Azure, which everything kind of runs on top of. So, and then they have this, what it might be a flawed partnership, but at least they've got a significant say. And quite honestly, what is the market cap for OpenAI now? Like 400 billion. So Microsoft's stake in that is like 40 billion. They got so much to play with. Now, I think the one that might be the most interesting is Google, with all the stuff that they have going to with them for them, including I was just kind of skimming over that article you pointed out. I think they're probably maybe in the best position in it, and they haven't really turned the tide, so to speak, completely on what's going on with AI. But they have so much at their disposal, including about 8 different properties that a billion people use monthly which is YouTube search. Now you got YouTube TV, you've got all the apps and all that kind of stuff. And they actually know how to use information. So I think Apple is, they'll never go away, of course, but they had an opportunity to be the leader in this area when they came out with Siri, what, 11 years ago? That was the original, could potentially the original AI assistant. And they just let it continue to be dumb for so many years
Mhm.
doing other stuff.
Frank, so what do you think about the having taken the opposite point of view?
It's funny. I was just looking at Apple's stock price. It went up $5 today. And what happened in the stock market, just to digress for
Everything is
one
going up.
second, was exactly what we said was going to happen, which was he talked about the dumping a 50% tariff on the EU. The stocks went tanked on Friday. We had a 3-day weekend where nothing happened. Come back on Tuesday and the stocks go way up, and I'll bet you anything every single person attached to Trump went out and bought stock on the downturn.
Not just
And they
that's to Trump.
to Trump. What did I say?
Yeah, I agree with you, but
But in any case,
it's pretty
I
much the coalition
yeah,
of the center that's running this country
yeah.
bought the stock.
So, but to get closer to what you were saying, I totally agree with you, Brent. I think Google is playing the best game right now out there when it comes to AI. But I do agree with you, Steve, is that AI is not it's not happening yet, but it's going to, and it's going to make a big difference. I'm concerned, quite honestly, about how AI being used in education and what it's going to do to people who are using AI to take their tests and write their papers. And I mean, it's really easy to write a paper with AI, I'm telling you. And the better AI gets, the more likely it is that it's going to get slipped by with some of these professors who are and that are looking to grade these papers. And we're going to have
You're
a
in favor.
generation. No, in
First,
that case, we're going to have a generation of stupid people who are really good using AI, but really bad at using their own brains. And I'm concerned about that.
well, that's kind of been true for a while. We haven't been teaching kids how to think all that well, but um, I think that universities are going to have to figure out different ways of testing people. Their students are, writing papers that may not cut it anymore. It's too easy to have some AI thing go off and write your paper, and then you do a little quick review of it and turn it in. Okay, not good. How about oral exams? You
Well,
know,
and the other thing, and to me, make a point, if AI can't generate a new idea based on all the old ideas, then what good is our future?
Well, what good is AI?
well, we don't know that
Would
that's
be
true.
would be more to the point.
I don't think that it's happened yet. It's too bad Keith's not here because he certainly knows more about AI than I
We know
do.
what it's about it.
But I don't think that AI has yet to generate a new idea. I think it has coalesced old ideas, and it makes them sound really good.
But
But I don't
well,
think.
last week there was this quote unquote TED talk, but it's really an interview of Eric Schmidt.
Mm.
I don't know who the guy was that was in it, some guy from TED. And he actually talked about, I think what he called the moment where this became a real thing, this AI stuff. It goes back to, I guess, some kind of a chess match between uh, a machine. No, it wasn't a chess match. It was it was some big game everybody played.
Go.
Yeah, Go, and how a game that had been around for I think he said 2,500 years or whatever. Um, this computer made a move that has never been done before out of all the times this game has been played over the 2,500 years and all the countless players, and this machine all of a sudden made a move that had never been moved before, done before. So there's something there. I mean, it's definitely, how do you explain that if if it isn't somehow this computer was able to take all this information in and do something that nobody had ever done before. So that is
Well,
now that.
I stand corrected in that case, but
But but
I had
but
not
to
heard
your
about
point,
that.
it's really about, I guess having the ability to do all sorts of math by gathering all sorts of information and then based on the math doing this move as opposed to like a brand new idea. It's
What
it,
what what was that? What is that Star Trek thing where you had to they gave you a test and it was an impossible test and no one ever beat it and the only Captain Kirk beat it because he cheated. I'd like to see what AI would do with that. Anyway, I can't remember what that was called. And I was just
I think that
thinking,
I think the premise about fear of AI is obviously legitimate, but I also think that people in general, uh, I put myself at the top of the list, uh, react to uh, the fear of AI more than to the opportunity of AI.
there's a Ian Waring is saying some really good stuff right now online about this topic. That Eric Schmidt is feeding hype to sociopaths at the top of the large organizations. And there's a good piece in Substack about the 8 fallacies of AI productivity promises. It's interesting. I mean, he's paying attention to us. Thanks, Ian.
he always does. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Brilliant viewer.
I find him since the AI started to manifest itself. I found that Ian has gotten progressively more intense.
Maybe he's using AI to write these notes.
So I really despair of ever getting uh, to have a conversation about what I would like it to be about. But uh, the getting there and the sidetracks that we go through to get to the stuff that's really interesting, I find it mesmerizing. And I think that when I've been working with this keyboard system to finally get over the fact that when my mother insisted that I go to for piano lessons, that was the time when I stopped ever being interested in the piano. And uh, I'm using a system that uh, a number of things are manifesting themselves that I was not aware of in the slightest. I know you, Frank, are a trained musician. You've been in the, you know, on the stage and, uh, sitting there doing a video from your office, for years. And so you have, I never expect, and I've worked with a lot of, incredible musicians. I never expect that I will be able to accomplish any of that. But what I do have uh, achieved a certain window into is the combination of plastic memory I once asked David Sanborn, why does he practice so much? And he said, that's all I do is practice. That's the secret. You have to do it. And I never understood that before. Just, obviously he was one of the great practitioners of the alto saxophone in history. But, and maintaining that, okay. But the, it's the things that you start to think about, the way your brain starts to change in subtle ways as you start to notice that the repetition is the least of the importance of practice. Practice is, I literally, about half the time when I'm using this system, I'm just free-forming. I just give up and I just start using my fingers on the keyboard and just find the stuff. I've got a good ear, so I know what sounds good. I just don't know how to do it. But that doesn't mean that that's irredeemable.
You just made me think of one of the things that I always thought about with practice was that um, you create in your muscle memory things that need to be used in order to be able to go off and riff onto something else that's really cool. That if you don't have the muscle memory, how do there's nothing more boring than playing scales, but there are more than one scale and there are more than one way to play that scale. And you can learn all of those things just by doing it over and over again. And once you've learned how to do that, you now see the neck. This is, I'm thinking about the guitar keyboard as opposed to the piano, but it's really exactly the same thing.
Mhm.
That those notes that you now have in your head from playing over and over again and getting them stuck into the muscle memory are the same notes that I mean, look, there's only 12 notes. They're the same notes that you're going to use to create a sonata or to create a really cool jazz riff or a blues riff or something like that. And it's funny when you were saying that, I was immediately thinking about Donald Trump and how he uses the same things over and over again when he talks. And a lot of that, some of the time, not everybody hears the same thing because they're not watching everything he's saying like some of us do. But they may hear it once or twice, and each time he does it, he may refine it a teeny bit. And that's like practice versus playing. And I think he does that, and I think that he does okay when he's stuck on a topic that he has spent a lot of time doing and thinking about over and over and over again.
Kind of like in the audience as well as being the player at that
You
moment.
you have to actually do that. I believe. I used to think that it was important that I could stand up there and I could play and I could close my eyes and I could be inside myself and I could continue to play and play with the other guys around me. But no matter what you're doing, you're playing for the people out there. And you need to put yourself in their headspace to know that what it is that you're doing is resonating with them. That's one of Trump's strong points. Whether he's right or wrong, it is resonating. And that's what he continues to play on. So in that sense, he's like a musician. And look, I hate to think about the musicians that he really cares about, like Kid Rock and his ilk, and the damage he's done to the Kennedy Center and what's going on with the arts. Somebody wrote, digress for a second. Somebody wrote a very interesting piece that I saw today about all of the things that in human nature, in humanity, that doesn't exist in the White House. There are no pets. There are no paintings. There are no football games outside, touch football games like the Kennedys did, or there's no riding horses like Ronald Reagan did, or there's nothing that feels like, the Rose Garden has been torn up and paved. It's like paved parking lot and put in a paved paradise, put in a parking lot. It just reminds me of all of the things that aren't there, as much as it reminds me of all the things that are happening. There's a lot that's not happening that is equally as bad. Just my opinion.
By the way, Ted Nugent and Lee Greenwood are offended by you not mentioning them.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
You know,
Now, it's funny. I actually used to like Lee Greenwood.
Now there's an omission that is deadly.
Yeah, I
You
guess.
didn't mention the other guy.
Okay. Ted Nugent, Lee Greenwood, Kid
Yeah.
Rock. I was tempted to say Kanye, but he actually. Although somebody tell me what happened to Kanye and Diddy? Actually, nothing. Nothing. Those guys were always like that. Anyway, my opinion. I remember at John King's studio when Diddy was an intern, uh, he, he was, I'm not going to say it.
Yeah.
I feel,
Now, this is on the last show you were talking about the 60s, and then you went to the 70s and the 80s.
well,
Like,
and then the
all of a sudden
90s,
we're
then the
right here,
2000s.
right now.
You know what I'm saying, don't you, Brent? You know what I'm saying. You know what
I
I'm
think
talking
we
about.
all know what you're saying.
I have no idea what you're saying, Frank.
What am I saying? I'll
Dang.
tell you what I'm saying. I am not going to tell you what I'm saying.
Plausible deniability is
You
everything.
know, what
Frank, is there any truth to the rumors about you showing up to one of those freak out parties or? No, the freak offs. That's what
Freak offs, no,
oh,
absolutely not. But I will tell you that when Carson Daly started the his late night show, which came on after I came on at like 12:30 in the morning. It was this weird little show called I want to say, I don't want to call it, it's not The Last Laugh. It's because I produced The Last Laugh. It was something else. And we had to produce two promos for him. One of them that I directed was with all of the entire band from No Doubt in an elevator at 30 Rock. And when the elevator opened, they played a song live. They had amplifiers and they had their instruments. And as Carson Daly came walking around the corner, he said, "There's the weirdest things happen here at 30 Rock, like this." And he
mm.
started playing. It was really cool. And the second one was with Diddy. And it was going to be me and the cameraman were supposed to go in a limo with Diddy and have him talk about Carson Daly's new show. And all he demanded was 2 bottles of Santa Margarita wine. That's it. Bring the 2 bottles of the wine, leave them there for me. And then the two of us got up to the car and he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah, the cameraman can get in. You can't." So I didn't get in. But when he came back, he gave me one of the bottles of wine. So that was very nice. It means nothing. None of that means
I was gonna
anything.
say, so that does that mean you actually did get an invite to the freak off, or just
No, no,
okay, just
no.
thought I'd ask.
Yeah,
Now,
the white
Fred,
party though. I did get invited to a white party once.
Ooh,
Yeah, but I didn't go because it was in Hamptons and I don't know. I
to a
couldn't make it.
what party?
A white party.
yeah, everybody
Was
wears
it?
white.
Diddy throws a party once a year where everybody wears white.
Yeah, that's the
But
prelude to the freak off. But
yeah, it was actually. I think there were freak offs that happened at the white party, but since I didn't go, I can't tell you.
can we talk about something else?
I don't
Well,
know.
we've talked about Trump, we've talked about Diddy, we've talked about I don't know. We could talk
Well,
about Prince.
I thought there was a good 10 minutes in the middle of this.
No, you thought there was a point to that story.
Well, you can laugh.
Get to the point, Caesar. That's
Well,
what Belzer used to say.
what's popping up for you, Brent, other than what we've been talking about?
Looks like potential tornado warnings.
Mm.
Oh, well, that kind
Where
of
in Georgia?
Coweta and Fayette County, which is a little south of me. So I'm
Yeah, you
keeping
better
an
hope
eye on
not,
that.
because I don't think FEMA's working anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that you found out there were tomato warnings. I'm surprised that you
Yeah.
found out there were tomato warnings because because NOAA's not working very much anymore either. I think they've lost an awful lot of their employees, and of course, then there's the FAA, which has also lost a whole bunch of its employees.
You know what? This actually is a great little segue because while I guess FEMA have they I know they like laid off a whole bunch of people. And these guys are absolutely not replacement for this. But there are these people on that have these YouTube channels that all they do is chase weather, and I think they become almost as important than some of the local weather people the way they cover this stuff. And right now, I kind of look at two. Or this guy Ryan Hall, he calls himself Ryan Hall, y'all. Don't ask me why. And
It must be from Georgia.
he's out of Tennessee.
Yeah, Yollywood.
And then there's this other dude, Max Velocity. When some kind of weather event is going on, I've seen these guys get upwards of 200,000 people watching in real time
Wow.
while they track all this stuff. And sometimes I find myself watching them more than I watch the local news folks,
Mm.
which is just a kind of like to me a sign of the times. And if you didn't know any better, their coverage is just as professional looking as like the folks that have been doing it for 30 years.
Maybe the folks who have been doing it for 30 years haven't changed all that much. How accurate are they, Brent? And is it compelling to you for reasons other than it's on YouTube? Is it like
Wouldn't be any other place for me to watch it if it wasn't on YouTube because it's these guys somehow have gotten tied into the I guess the national weather stuff and I'm I can tell it looks like if you watch their screen and like the local news, it almost looks exactly alike. They have all the same kind of stuff. The radars, the zoom ins, the zoom outs. They have their people that they bring in for live coverage, depending on where they are and what's going on. It really does look quite a bit like a traditional news, but it's almost sort of like that Midas Touch network, where
Mm.
more people are watching them for political news than they're watching the actual networks. It's kind of you can see this popping up almost in every kind of category. Like there's the traditional way, and then there's what's going on these new channels with people you never heard of before, but they're doing as good or in some instances even better than what we've been used to seeing. So it's
Well,
kind of
You
interesting
know,
seeing how hundreds of thousands of people are actually watching these folks in real
you
time.
make a good point though. I mean, it's sort of what Evan Shapiro has been talking about YouTube and how it's continuing to grow. It's now something like 12 and a half, 13% of all television viewing is now done with YouTube. The numbers are crazy, and a lot of the stuff that I watch on YouTube is very different from what I used to watch on traditional television. And I'm now watching a lot of YouTube, not through YouTube TV, but just through the YouTube app on my television. And it's, and you can scroll through those things on your TV just as easily as you can, because what I use for that is a Chromecast, and I throw it up there, and then scroll it with the phone, and
So what do you watch? Give me an example.
well, I watch Midas Touch Network all the time. Mostly most of the stuff that I'm watching, Ron Filipkowski, whenever he's on, I like him. Um, I still watch Brian Tyler Cohen. I
Cohen,
think, yeah, I like him. I think he's really good. I watch, there's a
Packman.
couple of, yeah, and there's a couple of new ones. There's a guy with an Italian last name that I've been watching, and I can't even remember his name, but he's really good. So a lot of that's the thing about YouTube, however. As good as these people are, you have to find them. So discovery is it's the same problem with watching streaming television. You need to go out personally to discover these things, and then you need to remember who it is and where they are and what they're saying and what their line is. And I honestly, not only do I forget, which one of these guys I really like, but I'll scroll through and I'll stop because hey, I like that guy, and I'll watch it. That's a problem that YouTube hasn't figured out yet as to how to market those things. And that's is it their problem? Is it the individuals who are doing these things? I think Midas Touch may be one of those groups that's doing a better job than a lot of the others because everyone knows Midas Touch, and Midas Touch has now moved up into like in the top 5 or 6 of the political uh, uh, YouTube channels, and that's pretty amazing in as short
Yeah.
a period of time. And I mean, and honestly, when Trump goes after Midas Touch, that helps Midas Touch a ton. And so if Trump started going after Brian Tyler Cohen, you bet his numbers would shoot up too. And so I think the issue is marketing these things and discovery. Those are two big issues with what goes on. However, that being said, the numbers are astounding.
And you would have to think that at some point, I think I remember sending Steve this article where it looks like YouTube TV is going to let you start building your own multi-views. You
Oh,
can, yeah, it's apparently coming pretty soon. But
No, it's here.
well,
I've been
they,
using it for the last 4 days.
oh,
Did
so it
you
is there.
built your
Okay,
own
cool.
multi-views, really? Because
Yeah.
I'd like to have one that had Amazon, Netflix, uh,
I don't think you're going to
Disney,
get that one.
Amazon, Netflix, Disney, and something else.
Yeah,
Maybe
don't
that
think
would
that's
be
coming there,
that would
Frank.
be really good because look, I find myself not even remembering what the hell it was I was watching an hour ago, and I go, God, which one was that on? And I got to go try and find it. And that's
I'm thinking, wait, and it's got to come. Wait till they allow you to select from YouTube channels, not YouTube TV premium, but like if you want to put Midas Touch in the multi-view, or if you want to put Tyler Cohen in the multi-view, or if I wanted to put some
Your
sports
Weather
stuff.
Channel or
Yeah,
a
the weather
sports
stuff.
channel. Yeah.
That's gonna make it really interesting
Gotta
to
be
know about.
coming soon.
It's got to be
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe you should do that and get the AI to help you do that and then sell it to them.
I thought only English people would think putting the Weather Channel in a multi-view would be interesting.
Not the Weather Channel. See, you missed a whole bunch of the conversation that day. Brent was talking about
No, he
specific
didn't.
YouTube.
He didn't miss a whole bunch. He missed um,
That.
a little.
Okay, you missed a skosh of what Brent was
A
saying.
lot of it was
Brent,
just
Brent,
Skosh.
saying all
I like that skosh.
skosh. You missed the skosh of what Brent was saying. Brent,
Brunch. All right, Frank.
okay, so
Franck. And by the way, that's what they call me
start
in
to wind
France.
this down a little bit by uh
Any TV recommendations?
no, I don't want to go
You
there.
don't want to go there.
No, I
I
don't.
do. But
Okay.
I'll
Well,
go.
then you go.
Yeah, the studio it's still terrific.
I don't
The
want to
studio.
I want to
Oh.
I am not in favor of ending this conversation.
Oh.
Unlike
At all?
I just this is not a place to end the conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, let's tie this back to why Frank and I think Google is sitting in a really good position with all this stuff. Look, all the ways that they can get our data, through search, through whatever, through our television watching habits, through our YouTube stuff. If they find a way to pull that all together and do stuff like making it easier for us to discover stuff, like Frank was saying, like give me my top 4 YouTube channels and make a multi-view out of that. That's cool.
And
Or better
and
yet,
that's the and that's yeah,
recommend
and
the
that's
four
all you have to
channels.
say to it. You just that's your prompt. Give me my
Yeah,
top 4 channels and make a multi-view. I think that would be
it's
spectacular.
got to be
I,
coming.
I reckon I could vibe code an Apple TV app that could do that by the end of the day.
Do it and then send it to us all. Because I'm telling, I love the fact that because Midas Touch lives on its own, has its own channel. So does Brian Tyler Cohen, and so does the Apple, the weather thing that Brent was talking about. They all have individual channels. If you can do that, send it to us and make it voice activated.
Oh, now you're asking for 2 days worth of work.
Well, if I could make money on a pool that says that what you say is going to take a day, and I say it's going to take 6 months, uh, somewhere in there's an opportunity to make some money.
I think so.
Okay.
Look, think about this. If you have the
he,
new,
he wants it so bad that he's trying to goad me into doing it.
oh, I think you should. I actually do think you should. I really do. But
No,
think,
I tried to do that. I tried to goad you into it, and you did your version of it, which isn't what I wanted. So I'm not trying that anymore.
Okay.
think about the photo app on the iPhone now that has the cleanup ability. I had a special app that I used to have to pay £7 a month for called Erase, which does the same thing that the cleanup app does in a free app that comes with your phone. That's the thing. You create the thing, you sell it, you move on.
Well, I think that AI is definitely going to integrate with these streaming technologies very, very effectively. And I think that there's a market that will manifest itself as something like a TV guide of the near future, which will be responsive, and the data will prove that people will default right back to 3 or 4 different setups. One of them may include Midas Touch or whatever that guy's name is. But
Ben Meiselas.
I mean, I keep trying to take with this new build technology. I try and take Fox out, and after about half an hour, I miss it and I want it back because I find myself yelling at the screen more often.
You should get one of those guns with the little rubber tips. I used to shoot them at my TVs. It was much easier when the TV screens were actually glass and you couldn't break them.
Okay, so is that what you want to do to bring it back around, Brent?
Don't blame me.
I'm not. I'm just asking you whether you're satisfied now with the circularity of the show.
Yeah. When were the Rams in Cleveland?
1937 to 1945.
My hat looks a lot newer than 1945, right?
Okay, what are the shows that you want to watch? Mobland, thank you.
Fabulous.
Can't wait
Fabulous.
for the last episode is next Sunday.
Is that the last one next Sunday?
Yep.
I don't know if you saw the latest season of This Is Us, but it was the last three episodes were like, what? Anyway, that's a hell of a show, and so is Daredevil. Is the new Daredevil series is really good, and I keep thinking about science fiction stuff. Andor, really good. There's so much good science fiction out there right now. That's really weird, um, and I finished watching.
I watched Murderbot at your recommendation. It's a bit weird.
It's very weird, but it grows on you. I will admit also, I ended up binging the entire 9 seasons of Suits in the space
Wow.
of about 2 months. Every night I'd start around 7, and the next thing I know it was 10, and I'd watch like 6 of them, and it was just. But it was a really good show until about the fifth episode, the fifth season. It started to go.
Well, you saw they canceled this reboot.
Yeah, they did. And I couldn't even get the reboot. The reboot is only on Peacock, and I couldn't get Peacock here.
You
I mean,
didn't miss much.
Sirens, Julianne Moore.
I want to start watching that. I've been hearing good things about that.
It's quirky, but it's good.
So there you go. Those are the recommendations.
Good to see you there. Good. Thank you.
I honestly, I feel like I'm such a TV nerd. The amount of content that I just gobble up every night and every day. That's what happens when you don't have a full-time job.
Sounds great to me.
Yeah, right. You guys are so much busier than I will ever be again unless my movie comes to. I'll tell you something. I've mentioned to you guys that I've been working on a feature film. And I'm working with a really good group of people. And when Trump announced that he was going to dump off 100% tariff on any movie that was made not in America, it freaked out the investors, and not just my investors, but a lot of investors. And I even had a big conversation. We had a huge chat with one of the major studios, with the president. It felt like an episode of The Studio, by the way. We were talking to the president of one of the big studios, and he said, no, we're not worried about that right now. We're just gonna keep going along like business as usual. And I went, yeah, but what about the money out there? Isn't it drying up? It seems to me that people are not drying up, but there's so much inconsistency based on things that guy says, that guy being,
I mean, but that's the case with everything. This
stock
dude,
market.
yeah, he says, and he knows it, and he gets a kick out of this stuff. He doesn't. I don't think he cares about how ridiculously hard he makes it for business people to try to plan and do long range planning and buying and stuff, because you can't, because this guy get up and say something really dumb and completely roil the markets,
Now,
and then he'll walk it back.
but so think about this for a second. Now I'm thinking like Steve. I can't believe it. He does that. He does that. And then everything tanks until the people who are in the tank decide to give him some money to buy some Bitcoin, and then he changes his mind. We've seen that happen. Maybe it's not as blatant as that, but I think it is.
Well, maybe he'll invite somebody over to the White House and then keep him and won't let him go until the guy signs over his Bitcoin.
Look, I think he kind of did that at Mar-a-Lago with the Bitcoin dinner that he had, apparently with some really crappy food.
Can you imagine if any other president did any of these things? Not all of them, just
Anyway,
any of these things, what would happen? It's just
Well, that was their mistake, evidently, is that if you just do all of them, then you get away with it.
you
look,
overwhelm every.
how is it that that airplane story, which everybody made a big deal out of, came to fruition? That in fact the American military accepted it. They accepted the plane. Where's the outrage? Where is the outrage? There was a moment of outrage, and then it went away.
Well, that then
Uh,
you start a fight with Harvard, and you start a fight with all these,
Squirrel,
yeah, cultural stuff,
squirrel.
and then that takes the eye off the media's eye off of that,
Off the
because
ball.
anything that's cultural, like this hideous, I cannot stand that we're still talking about woke. I mean, but if you say it, all of a sudden that becomes the media's focus, and all this other stuff, it's like gone. It's truly unbelievable what we're dealing with
But
here.
Brent, I'll tell you, in Palo Alto, there's a huge debate about in the education system. Everyone's focused on it. Is to do with introducing ethnic studies into the high schools. And my wife read out to me today what the curriculum is going to be. And basically, it's still got wind in its sails. The whole curriculum is basically creating a hierarchy of oppressions where the only valid people are the most oppressed at the top. And if you're a white male, you're like right at the bottom. And it's depicting society through strength of victimhood.
Ah,
It's crazy. It's completely crazy. It's going to totally piss off any normal people that aren't a minority. And it's like rubbing their nose in the fact that they're not either a Native American or African American. It's completely the opposite of how to fight racism.
but see, then what that does is it creates a situation where the people at the bottom want to fight back to the people at the top.
Well, it
And that's the
turns
division.
people who are not racist into people that sound racist,
Yeah.
actually, is what happens. And it divides. It doesn't actually bring together, it divides. And so obviously it's difficult because oppression is real, racism is real. They're not fake, but it's how you get the everyone to want to change that rather than turning the people who are not oppressed into the bad people.
I have a question for the group, Steve, if I may. Um, I, do we
Either it's
think
a group or it isn't.
do we think that the Democrats will win in the midterms and take over? And
No,
if they do, will it matter?
no. And since it won't happen, it won't matter.
Well, there's no sign, the Democrats seem to be relying on self-implosion as always. And that's a high risk bet.
Well, if they take a little bit of Trump's playbook, and for example, what he's doing with negotiating the tariff situation and also the war situation, which is he basically uh, gets himself into a position where he has to say, well, I didn't want this, but since that's the situation we're in, we're going to have to do this, whatever this is. And if the Democrats employ that strategy, they might actually get something done.
Yep.
Interesting.
Have you guys heard this rumor that Trump is floating a 50% reduction in military spending agreed to by China, Russia, and the US simultaneously?
No,
No.
You get to that right after.
50%. That'll never happen here.
Yeah, he's going to have a problem with the senators from Virginia.
San Diego.
Yes.
He would have a problem if he wanted to do like a dollar cut. It's
Yeah,
so
as the big beautiful bill has
it's so
increased.
symbolic, the defense spending, that there's no way the one department that would get money, even if all the other ones were getting cut, would be defense.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
By
it's
the way, the Golden Dome apparently won't work, but it still will cost something like It's
Maybe
$5
we
trillion.
get golden arches. That'll work. That's worked for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm sorry. I can't, only thing I could say positive about this guy is he knows how to manipulate people. He knows how to play people against each other, and he knows how to promote himself.
Oh.
That's
Other
up
than that, I'm not buying anything else.
I wouldn't buy that for $1.
okay. Uh, thanks to everybody who showed up, and especially those who didn't.
Thanks to Ian.
Yeah, Ian, good job.
Always look on the bright side of life.
You
You got the jazz hands going there.
you don't need that arm. Don't need that leg.
Ugh. I'm surprised, Keith, you haven't bought one of those Mac Studio Ultras yet, so you can run your own LLMs privately.
I've long ago experimented and decided that running your own LLMs is a way to have bad LLMs.
There's so many good ones out there, Ryan.
Even if you completely over provision, you get the versions that run in the cloud that are like 450 billion parameters completely blow away anything you can run locally.
You'd have to have like a terabyte of memory then.
Maybe 10 terabyte. You'd have to have a wall of those things. Which I wouldn't suggest that Keith wouldn't have a wall of those things. Guys, come to London because I'm not likely to come there much anymore for the next 3 years. Come to London. Let me take you to lunch at BAFTA. We'll go see a movie. It's my new club now. I've joined BAFTA. I've become a member, and it's pretty cool.
You mean you're not doing your annual pilgrimage?
You know, one of them is gone completely, so I'm not doing the SCAD television thing. The SCAD has this campus in Atlanta, so I won't be coming to Atlanta anymore. I'm not sure about Savannah. They usually by this time have sent me an invitation for the film festival. Haven't gotten it yet. They've actually sort of switched things up at the film festival in Savannah for SCAD, and they're like bringing in all these big stars. The huge number of stars with lots of big movies has to be costing them a lot of money. So the little guys like me, I don't know what's going to happen. But honestly, I'm very happy with BAFTA. Keith, come on in.
When my wife and I first met in 1990, her first job was doing Quark Express for the BAFTA magazine. She used to lay it all out.
Quark. Oh my God.
Or BFI maybe. BFI actually.
The British Film Institute. Yeah. BAFTA's it was a hard ticket to get, and fortunately I managed to get it at the sort of the tail end of my career, just before I start making another movie, a documentary or a feature film. Maybe the last two big projects that I work on.
I'm a member of the Society of Authors in the UK. I get royalties for my books.
Yeah, I still get like pennies for the royalties on the songs I wrote in the last 30 years.
Yeah, me too. Pennies.
From BMI. Yeah, here it is. I got a check for 36 cents. Costs more to send me it than it does for them.
I thought you're not from pennies from BMI, but pennies from heaven.
Yeah. Yeah, no, pennies from BMI.
It's
Same
time
thing.
to end this because I'm getting way too corny at this point.
I ended it about 10 minutes ago.
No,
Yeah,
but
we're still
still
streaming.
online, aren't we?
Yeah, we're still
we
streaming.
are. All right. Well, bye-bye.
Yes.
See you guys
Bye-bye. Thanks.
next
All
time.
right.
When are you going to publish the last show?
It's out there
Oh,
as
is
of
it?
an hour ago.
All right.
Oh,
I'm
no.
gonna
Oh, is that
go.
why I got an invite to some kind of podcast
Yeah.
thing? Oh, okay. In that case, I'll accept it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. See you guys
Nice
later.
to see you guys.
Rest in peace, Rick.
Mm.
Yeah.
See ya.